Tonight, as the sky slowly quiets and the wind begins to whisper through the leaves, I want to tell you about a man born among the rice fields of southern Vietnam, where the songs of frogs blend with the scent of ripe grain. Yet within his heart lived a dream far higher than any bird could ever reach. Some people are born to live in peace, and some are born to fly through storms. Nguyen Van Bay was one of those, a farmer who became a pilot, a humble soldier who wrote his name among legends in the rain of fire and the roar of war. Before you close your eyes to rest, let this story take you back to another time, a time when youth, courage, and love for the homeland intertwined as one. This story is told in 7 chapters, 7 journeys, 7 moments where a man defied his own limits, and 7 marks forever carved into the history of Vietnam. If your heart stirs while listening to his path, don't forget to subscribe, so that in the quiet nights to come, we may meet again, where stories of Vietnam continue to shine softly in the calm of the dark. Now, lie down comfortably. Take a deep breath. Let your mind drift like a tender cloud at dusk. And together, let's return to An Giang many years ago, where a young boy named Nguyen Van Bay looked up at the sky for the very first time, not knowing that his destiny had already begun in that single, quiet moment. Tonight, I want to take you back to a small village in southern Vietnam, where the air smells of wet earth after the rain, and where a boy once looked up at the endless sky, never knowing that one day the sky would remember his name. Nguyen Van Bay was born in 1936 in the peaceful countryside of Long Xuyen, An Giang province, a land of green rice fields and quiet rivers winding through villages of palm leaves and bamboo fences. His family were farmers, like most families then. Theirs was a life of simplicity, bound to the rhythm of the land, planting in the rain, harvesting in the sun, surviving by the sweat of their hands. He was the 4th child in a large family, raised with love but little else. They didn't have toys, or even shoes most days, but they had something precious, the boundless sky above and the freedom of the fields. Bay, as everyone called him, grew up chasing dragonflies, swimming in muddy canals, and herding buffaloes under the burning sun. At dusk, when the fields turned golden and the sky softened into pink, he would lie on his back in the grass and watch the clouds drift by. Planes, rare, distant, like birds made of metal, sometimes crossed above. To others, they were just dots in the sky, but to Bay, they were magic. He would trace their trails with his eyes and whisper to himself, "Someday, I'll touch the sky." It was a dream far too big for a farmer's boy, but dreams, like seeds, can take root in the hardest soil. The 1940s in Vietnam were not peaceful years. Though the village life seemed still, whispers of war began to echo even in the farthest corners. The French had returned, and the struggle for independence was rising once again. For a boy like Bay, the world was divided into 2 things: what you could see and what you could feel. He could see the soldiers on the road, the flags that weren't his country's. And he could feel something changing in the hearts of grown men, the quiet anger, the sense of injustice. His father used to sit by the oil lamp at night, the light flickering on his worn face, and speak softly about freedom. "One day," his father said, "our land will be ours again." Bay didn't fully understand then, but he saw the way his father's hands trembled when he spoke. He remembered the smell of smoke from the fields after raids, and the silent tears of his mother when neighbors disappeared. Those were things no child should see, yet they shaped the boy he would become. When he was a teenager, Bay worked harder than most men. He helped plow the fields, built dikes, repaired fishing nets, and carried rice on his shoulders. But even as his body became strong, his eyes still lifted toward the sky. By 1954, when the Geneva Agreement divided the country, Bay was 18. The war had left deep marks everywhere. He didn't have schooling or wealth, only the conviction that his country needed something. He didn't know yet what that something was, only that he couldn't stand still while others fought. People in the village whispered of resistance movements in the south. Men disappeared in the night to join hidden units. Women sewed uniforms and carried messages. Bay listened, quietly, with the same focus he once used to watch the sky. Then one night, while the frogs croaked and the moon hung low, he told his father, "Pa, I want to go." His father said nothing for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "If you go, go with a pure heart. Don't fight for anger. Fight for the land, for the people." Bay never forgot those words. He joined the resistance in the early 1960s, starting as a ground soldier. At first, he knew nothing about weapons, discipline, or war, but he learned quickly. His hands, once used to holding farming tools, now held rifles. His eyes, once soft with wonder, hardened with determination. He fought in the muddy fields, in jungles full of leeches, under rain that never seemed to stop. Food was scarce, danger was constant, and yet there was a strange calm in his heart. He knew why he was there. He wasn't fighting for glory or medals. He was fighting so that children could look at the sky without fear. Sometimes at night, when the gunfire had stopped and the jungle was silent, he would look up and see the faint glimmer of a plane passing by. He still whispered, "Someday, I'll touch that sky." It was no longer the dream of a child. It was the dream of a soldier who believed that even war could not stop him from reaching it. Years passed, and Bay's bravery and discipline drew attention. His commanders saw something in him, not just courage, but steadiness. He didn't hesitate, didn't boast, didn't falter under fire. One officer once said, "That man, he was born to do something greater than just walk this earth." In 1962, when North Vietnam began recruiting for pilot training, Bay's name was suggested. It was a near impossible dream for someone like him, a farmer's son, barely educated, without any experience beyond the jungle. But his superiors insisted. He had something rarer than skill, the heart of a warrior, and the calm of a man who understood fear but never surrendered to it. When they told him he had been chosen to train as a pilot, Bay smiled quietly. "To fly?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "Yes," the officer said, "to fly." That night, Bay couldn't sleep. He walked outside, looked at the moon hanging over the rice paddies, and thought of his parents. The same sky that had once felt unreachable now looked closer, as if calling him by name. In the months that followed, Bay traveled north, farther than he had ever been, to begin his training. The journey itself felt like crossing into another world. He left behind his family, his village, and the life he once knew. Ahead lay the unknown, machines of steel, the language of engines, and the art of flight. The boy who once watched airplanes in wonder was now walking toward one. And though fear brushed against his heart, it was quickly replaced by something stronger, the quiet certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. That night, as his train rattled through the dark countryside, Nguyen Van Bay leaned by the window and stared into the endless stars. The rhythm of the wheels sounded like the beating of his heart, steady, patient, unstoppable. He thought of his father's words, his mother's eyes, his home under the palm trees. He thought of the sky, and somewhere deep inside, he whispered one last time, "Someday I'll touch the sky." He didn't know it yet, but that someday was closer than he could imagine. When the war crept deeper into the villages of the South, it didn't come with roaring tanks or thunderous planes at first. It came quietly, like a shadow stretching across the fields. Rumors spread faster than the wind, about distant battles, about soldiers who never returned, about entire hamlets turned to ash. For young Nguyen Van Bay, the war was no longer a story told by travelers. It was real, it was near, and it demanded a choice. The boy who once looked at the sky now stood between the land and the clouds, between the world he knew and the one he had yet to discover. At dawn, when the morning mist curled above the paddies, he walked barefoot through the dew, feeling the cold bite of earth beneath his feet. The frogs croaked their farewell to the night, and the roosters sang the arrival of another uncertain day. Somewhere beyond the horizon, he could hear faint echoes, distant gunfire, like thunder over the Mekong. The peaceful rhythm of the village was breaking. He was barely 20 when he made his decision. He didn't speak much about it to anyone, not to his brothers, not even to his mother, who always sensed his restlessness. One evening, she found him sitting by the bamboo gate, staring at the twilight. The sun was sinking into the river, painting the water gold. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. He turned, trying to smile. "Just thinking, Meg, about what kind of man I should become." She studied his face for a long while, then looked away. "There are many kinds of men in this world, Kona, but only a few can sleep soundly at night." He didn't answer, but her words stayed with him forever. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, he sat outside again, listening to the night insects and the soft murmur of the river. He thought about his friends who had already joined the resistance. He thought about the children in the village who would never go to school because soldiers now patrolled the paths they once walked freely. And then he thought about the sky, wide, endless, untouchable, and wondered if one day he could protect it. A few weeks later, he left home. He carried no luggage, only a small cloth bag with dried rice, a canteen, and a photograph of his family. The journey north was long and grueling. He moved mostly at night, following small trails through forests and fields, crossing rivers under the stars. The jungle was both friend and enemy. It sheltered him, but it also swallowed countless others who never came out. He joined the revolutionary forces, not as a pilot, not yet, but as a young soldier. His hands, used to holding plows, now gripped a rifle. The training was harsh, the food scarce, but in the eyes of those around him burned the same quiet determination. They were farmers, teachers, fishermen, all transformed by the call of their country. Years passed like the rhythm of marching feet. He learned discipline, endurance, and silence. Yet no matter how tired he was, his eyes always turned upward whenever he heard an airplane. Most saw them as threats, but he saw them as a challenge, something to reach, something to master. One evening, while stationed near a forest outpost, he witnessed an air raid. The sky screamed as bombs fell, tearing through trees and earth. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Amid the chaos, he found himself frozen, not by fear, but by awe. Those machines of steel and fire ruled the sky like gods, and in that moment he whispered to himself, "If they can fly, so can we." That single thought became his compass. Months later, rumors reached their unit that the North was training pilots, real Vietnamese pilots, to fight the enemy in the air. It sounded impossible. Planes were expensive, training even more so. But something inside him refused to doubt it. When volunteers were called for pilot training, he stepped forward without hesitation. His comrades laughed at first. "You, the farmer boy? You think you can fly?" one of them joked. He smiled quietly. "Maybe I already do, just not yet with wings." The journey to become a pilot was unlike anything he had imagined. It took him far from the humid air of the South to the crisp winds of the North, then across borders to distant lands where snow fell and languages changed. The government had sent him, along with a handful of other young men, to train abroad with allies who had seen the fire of modern war. It was his first time leaving Vietnam, and every moment felt like stepping into another world. The training base was vast, rows of silver planes glimmering under cold skies. The instructors were strict, their words sharp but fair. Everything had to be perfect. The posture, the reaction time, the understanding of wind and weight and motion. The classroom smelled of oil and metal, of dreams forged under pressure. At first, he struggled. The controls were foreign, the commands in another tongue. He failed tests. He grew frustrated. Sometimes, late at night, he would sit by the window watching snowflakes drift down, so different from the warm rains of his hometown. He missed the sound of the frogs, the smell of wet earth after a storm. But every morning he woke up before dawn and went back to the simulator, back to the books, back to the hangar. He wasn't born to fly, but he was born to never give up. One of his instructors, a stern yet kind foreign officer, took notice of his determination. "You're not the fastest learner," the man said one day, "but you have something others don't. You listen to the plane. You feel it." That was the beginning of change. He started to understand the rhythm of flight, not as a mechanical act, but as a dance between man and sky. Every sound, every vibration, every flicker of the gauges spoke to him. The more he learned, the more he fell in love with the sky, not as a dreamer this time, but as a pilot. Months turned into years. He earned his wings. The ceremony was small but sacred. Standing in his flight suit, he felt the weight of the badge on his chest. It wasn't just metal. It was the memory of his family, his village, and the countless lives lost below. He looked up at the vast expanse of blue and whispered a promise. "I will protect you." When he returned to Vietnam, he was no longer the barefoot boy from the Mekong. He was Lieutenant Nguyen Van Bay, a fighter pilot of the People's Air Force. The war was raging harder than ever, and the North needed every skilled pilot it could muster. But for him, the mission was deeply personal. It was about defending the sky that once seemed unreachable. The first time he climbed into the cockpit of a MiG-17, he felt something stir inside. Not fear, not pride, but belonging. The tight space, the hum of the engine, the way the light filtered through the canopy. It was all familiar, as if the sky had been waiting for him. He remembered his mother's words again. "Only a few can sleep soundly at night." And he knew deep down that this fight, this purpose, was the only way he could ever rest. That night, before his first real combat mission, he didn't sleep. He stood outside the barracks, looking at the stars, the same stars he once saw reflected in the paddies of his youth. The wind was cold, whispering like an old friend. He thought of his home, his village, his people. He thought of all the faces he wanted to protect. When dawn came, he climbed into his MiG, strapped in, and closed the canopy. The world outside faded to a muffled hum. The tower's voice crackled in his ear. Engines roared. The plane trembled, and then, suddenly, he was free. The ground fell away. The rivers became ribbons of light. The clouds opened like gates. He was no longer looking at the sky. He was part of it. The morning air above the airfield was cool and still. The sun had not yet broken the horizon, but the faint glow of dawn painted a thin silver line across the eastern sky. The MiG-17s waited silently, lined like sleeping dragons on the runway, their wings glistening with dew. Inside the barracks, the young pilots prepared in silence. No one said much. There was nothing left to say. For Nguyen Van Bay, this day had been written in his mind for years. The day when all the training, all the sweat, all the quiet promises he made under the stars would be tested. It was his first combat mission. He buttoned his flight suit slowly, carefully. Every movement carried weight. Around him, other pilots moved with quiet precision. A brotherhood forged not by blood but by purpose. The air smelled faintly of fuel and metal. It was a smell that no longer frightened him. It was the scent of home now. He remembered something his instructor once told him. Flying is easy. Fighting is hard. But living through it, that's the art. The alarm broke the stillness, a long, sharp sound that sliced through the dawn. Everyone froze for a heartbeat, then moved as one. Ground crews ran. Mechanics shouted. Engines began to growl awake. Enemy aircraft had crossed into the north. The pilots rushed toward their planes. Nguyen Van Bay climbed into his MiG-17, his hands steady though his pulse thundered in his ears. As the canopy closed with a heavy click, the world outside vanished. It was just him, the cockpit, and the sky. The engine roared to life. The vibrations ran up his arms, through his chest, alive, powerful. He whispered softly to himself, "Let's go, old friend." Then, with a surge of fire and motion, the MiG leapt down the runway and soared into the morning light. The sky opened wide, endless and pale blue. Clouds drifted like islands on an unseen sea. Far below, the green patchwork of Vietnam stretched toward the horizon, rivers glinting, fields breathing under the wind. It was beautiful, heartbreakingly so. And yet beneath that beauty lay danger. Enemy bombers, 12 o'clock, high altitude, the radio crackled. His squadron leader's voice came through, calm, clipped, almost gentle. "Stay tight, boys, wait for my signal." Nguyen Van Bay's heart pounded. He spotted them, dark specks gliding across the sun, formation perfect. American jets, massive, confident, cutting through the sky like knives. Behind them, smaller escorts weaved, their silver wings flashing. It was David facing Goliath in the clouds. He gripped the control stick. His breath slowed. Every instinct told him to move, to strike, but he waited. Discipline drilled deep into his bones. The squadron climbed higher, angling toward the sun. Light shimmered across their wings, blinding from below. It was a trick as old as war itself. Attack from where the enemy least expects. The signal came. Engage! The sky erupted. Engines screamed. Contrails twisted like white scars. Missiles tore through the air. The calm blue heavens turned into chaos, a ballet of fire and steel. Nguyen Van Bay dove, his body pressed hard against the seat as gravity pulled. The MiG responded like a living thing, turning, rolling, climbing with precision that came from thousands of hours of training and instinct. He spotted a pair of enemy fighters breaking formation, hunting one of his comrades. Without thinking, he pushed the throttle forward, closing the distance. The world narrowed to the sight before him. The crosshairs, the heartbeat, the hum of the jet. "Steady," he whispered. At the perfect moment, he fired. The cannons roared, deep, shaking thunder. Tracer rounds streaked through the sky like comets. The enemy plane burst into flames, rolling violently before breaking apart. A second later, the explosion bloomed in the distance, orange against the blue. He didn't cheer, he didn't even smile, he simply exhaled. That was the moment he became not just a pilot, but a warrior of the sky. But there was no time to reflect. Another fighter appeared behind him, its shadow darting across his canopy. The warning crackled too late. Bullets tore past his left wing. The MiG shuddered violently, alarms screaming. Smoke trailed from the fuselage. He dove hard, cutting through clouds, twisting through maneuvers he had practiced endlessly on calm days that suddenly felt like another life. His world was spinning, sky, earth, sky again. The G-force crushed him against the seat, but he fought to breathe, to stay conscious. At last, he leveled out. The engine coughed, sputtered, then steadied. His pursuer was gone. He climbed again, higher and higher, until the world below looked like a dream. Rivers like threads of silver, forests like deep green waves. The radio crackled faintly. He could hear the voices of his comrades still fighting somewhere in the vast blig. "By status?" he replied calmly. "Still flying, still here." The battle raged for nearly an hour, a long time in the sky. When the command came to return, the surviving MiGs descended toward their base, their fuel low, their hearts heavy but steady. On the runway, mechanics and ground crews waited anxiously. As his MiG landed, its left wing scorched and riddled with bullet holes, cheers erupted. He climbed down slowly, helmet in hand, his face streaked with sweat and soot. One of his comrades ran up, grinning despite the exhaustion. "You got?" Nguyen Van Bay smiled faintly. "Maybe. The sky will tell." Later, when the reports were confirmed, it was official. His first VI. But that night, he took a deep breath, feeling the cool wind on his face. The sky above was silent again, vast, peaceful, infinite. He whispered. In the following days, word of the victory spread quickly. The story of the farmer-turned-pilot who downed a modern jet in his first battle inspired everyone. To the soldiers, he was proof that courage and skill could triumph over power. To the villagers, he was a son of the lamb. But to himself, he remained simply Nguyen Van Bay, the boy who once looked at the sky and promised to protect it. Each mission after that carried more weight. He became sharper, calmer, almost serene in the cockpit. His comrades said he had a strange sense for danger, that he could feel the enemy before seeing them. He never bragged, never sought glory. For him, every flight was a prayer to Zayn. One evening, after returning from a particularly fierce engagement, he sat by the airstrip with his mechanic. The man asked, "How do you stay so calm up there, sir? Don't you get?" He smiled, eyes on the horizon. Oh. That night, as he lay in his bunk, the rumble of engines still echoed in his ears. He dreamed of home, of the rice field swaying, of his mother's voice calling him for dinner, of a sky unbroken by smoke. In his dream, he wasn't flying to fight. He was simply flying, free and light, as the boy he once was. Weeks passed and his legend began to grow. Every time the siren wailed, the ground crew whispered, "He's going up again." The young pilots watched him with a mix of awe and hope. He became a quiet symbol, proof that ordinary men could do extraordinary things. And yet, he never sought the spotlight. After every victory, he returned to the same corner of the base, looked at the same stars, and whispered the same words. Keep them safe. Because for Nguyen Van Bay, the sky was not just his battlefield. It was his home, his promise, his peace. The air over North Vietnam in 1967 was heavy with war. The sky, once wide and peaceful, now carried the sound of thunder, not from storms, but from engines. Every day, waves of American bombers crossed the clouds, their trails stretching like long white scars across the blue. But in that same sky, small silver MiG-17s waited, quiet, patient, and fearless. And among them was a man whose calm eyes had seen the rice fields of An Giang and the endless clouds above them. His name was Nguyen Van Bay. By then, Bay had already fought several battles. His comrades called him the Quiet One, a man of few words who spoke only when needed, and when he did, people listened. He never shouted orders or sought attention. His authority came not from rank, but from the calm that surrounded him, even when the world was falling apart. Each morning before a mission, he would rise early. The airbase still slept, but he would walk alone to the edge of the runway. There he would stand silently, looking toward the horizon where the mist met the mountains. Some said he prayed, others said he simply listened, to the wind, to the sound of the earth waking up. When the sun finally broke through the clouds, the golden light touched his flight helmet, and he would smile faintly. "Good morning, sky," he would whisper. Then he walked back, ready for whatever the day would bring. By this time, the American air campaign had grown fierce. Newer, faster aircraft, F-4 Phantoms and F-105 Thunder Chiefs, ruled the skies with radar-guided missiles and superior technology. To face them with a MiG-17, an older, slower jet, seemed like madness. But to Bai, it was never about the machine. "The plane doesn't fight," he once said softly. "The pilot does." He had learned to turn every weakness into strength. Where the enemy relied on speed, he relied on patience. Where they depended on radar, he trusted instinct. Where they fought with pride, he fought with purpose. On one mission, his squadron was outnumbered 3-1. The sky was alive with fire and contrails. American pilots, confident and well-trained, dived in from high above. But Bai, calm as ever, maneuvered through the chaos. His MiG twisted through the clouds like a silver leaf in the wind. He waited for the perfect moment, not when the enemy was strongest, but when they believed they had already won. Then, with a sudden roll and climb, he reversed the hunt. Within seconds, he was behind them, invisible in the sun's glare. One burst, two bursts, a flash of orange, another victory. His wingmen would later swear that he didn't even raise his voice. After landing, he merely nodded to the ground crew, as if returning from a peaceful flight. To him, the sky was never about glory, it was about balance. A quiet duel between life and death, courage and fear. Word spread quickly. Newspapers called him the Ace of the North. Foreign reports described him as a master of maneuver, a natural-born pilot. But to those who knew him, he was still the same gentleman who preferred sitting by the airstrip at night, drinking tea and watching the stars. When asked once how he felt being called a hero, he smiled. "A hero? No, I just fly." Heroes are the ones who build the runway, fuel the planes, and wait for us to come home. His humility became as legendary as his victories. He often reminded young pilots, "Never fight for yourself, fight for the land beneath you, for the people who cannot fly." In those words lay the essence of Nguyen Van Bay: strength without pride, bravery without hate. Between missions, life at the base had its own rhythm. The pilots would share stories, fix their planes, or write letters home. The laughter was quiet, almost fragile, because they all knew how easily it could vanish. Bay rarely spoke of his victories. Instead, he talked about home, about the Mekong Delta, the buffaloes, the smell of wet grass after rain. He told younger pilots that the sky, no matter how violent, always reminded him of peace. At night, they would sit together looking at the stars. Someone once asked him if he ever feared death. He shook his head gently. "If I die up there," he said, "I'll just become part of the sky. And maybe one day, someone looking up will see me and think, 'He flew for us.'" There was a silence after that, the kind that carried both sadness and awe. In less than a year, Nguyen Van Bay shot down 7 enemy aircraft, earning him the title of Ace Pilot, one of the highest honors a fighter pilot could achieve. 7, the number that seemed to follow him like destiny. But numbers meant little to him. When his comrades congratulated him, he only said, "Every plane I bring down means one less bombing on our villages. That's all." To his people, he was more than a soldier. He was hope made visible, soaring above the clouds. To his enemies, he was a ghost, silent, precise, appearing and vanishing before radar could catch him. And yet to himself, he remained what he had always been, the boy from the fields who once whispered to the wind that he would touch the sky. One quiet evening after a long day of missions, he sat alone near the runway. The sun was setting, painting the world in shades of gold and violet. The air was warm, and the faint hum of crickets filled the silence. His mechanic approached and placed a cup of tea beside him. "Comrade Bay," the man said softly, "you've become a legend. Everyone talks about you." He smiled, eyes still on the horizon. "Legends fade, the land remains. That's enough." They sat together watching the sky darken. The first stars appeared, scattered and gentle. Somewhere far above, the vapor trails from earlier dogfights were still fading, thin white ghosts dissolving into the night. Bay lifted his cup, took a slow sip, and whispered, "Rest. Well, sky, tomorrow we'll dance again." For most people, the sky is distant, unreachable. But for Nguyen Van Bay, it was home. He did not conquer it, he protected it. Every flight was a promise, every victory a whisper to his people. "You are safe. The sky is ours." And though decades have passed since those days of roaring engines and burning clouds, his spirit still lingers in the air above Vietnam. Quiet, steady, eternal. If you listen closely on a still night, when the wind moves softly through the trees, you might almost hear the faint echo of a mig climbing high, cutting through the silence. It's him, still watching, still guarding, still free. The monsoon season had come, and with it, the air above Vietnam turned heavy with clouds and tension. The sun barely pierced through the gray mist, and below, the rice paddies shimmered faintly under the weight of rain. For the pilots of the Vietnamese Air Force, the storms in the sky mirrored the storms in their hearts. Each mission was a dance with death, but also a quiet affirmation of love for their homeland. Nguyen Van Bay sat in the cockpit of his MiG-17, fingers resting lightly on the control stick. The metal around him felt alive, as if the aircraft shared his pulse. To him, flying was never just a duty, it was a calling. The roar of the engine was like the sound of his own heartbeat, and when the plane climbed, he felt as if the entire nation rose with him. That day, intelligence reported a formation of enemy aircraft approaching from the South China Sea. The Americans were sending F-8 Crusaders and F-4 Phantoms, faster, newer, and deadlier than anything Bay's generation had flown before. Yet he didn't hesitate. To him, numbers and machines were meaningless when weighed against courage and faith. He whispered, almost to himself, "Let's dance again, old friend," and pulled his oxygen mask into place. The ground crew saluted as his MiG rolled down the runway, the sound splitting the humid air. Within seconds, he was one with the clouds. The radio crackled. "Bay, do you see them?" "Not yet," he replied calmly, "but they'll come." Then, out of the endless blue-gray expanse, they appeared, 6 Phantoms in formation, sunlight glinting off their wings. Bay's eyes sharpened. He dove low, then climbed sharply, cutting through a cloud bank. His MiG, though smaller and slower, could turn on a dime. He used that to his advantage, circling and climbing in unpredictable patterns that made radar tracking nearly useless. The sky erupted in streaks of flame. Missiles screamed past him, exploding into blossoms of orange fire. Bay's breath steadied, his focus narrowing to a single point. He rolled the plane, looped behind an enemy Phantom, and with a single burst from his cannon, boom! One American jet became a trail of smoke, spiraling toward the earth. But the fight was far from over. 2 Crusaders closed in behind him, firing in quick succession. Bullets grazed his tail, sparks flying. He felt the jolt, the trembling of the machine, yet his mind stayed still. With a sharp pull and a daring dive, he descended toward the mountains, the enemy still on his tail. Then, in a maneuver few could ever match, he cut his throttle, letting his plane almost stall mid-air, and the pursuing jets shot past him. In that moment, Bay reignited the engines, locked his sights, and fired. Another Phantom fell. The radio erupted in cheers. "Captain Bay, you did it again!" But Bay didn't celebrate. As the burning wreck disappeared into the horizon, he only whispered, "It's not me, it's Vietnam." When he returned to base, the rain began to fall. The men rushed to greet him, but he sat silently, removing his helmet. Raindrops mixed with sweat and oil on his face. He looked up at the dark clouds, feeling both the weight and beauty of what had just happened. He had survived another day, another battle in the sky of fire. But he knew, every time he flew, a part of him stayed up there, among the clouds, watching over his homeland. That night, as others slept, Nguyen Van Bay sat by the window of the small barracks. The storm raged outside, yet he felt peace. He had not just defended the land, he had defended the dream of freedom. And in his heart, he knew the sky would always remember his name. The war had aged him, though his spirit remained untouched. Captain Nguyen Van Bay, once the daring young pilot who chased thunder across the sky, now carried a different kind of power. The quiet, steady calm of a man who had looked death in the eyes and learned to smile back. The base had changed. The smell of engine oil and gunpowder was softer now, replaced by the faint scent of rain and rust. Younger pilots filled the hangars, boys barely in their 20s, with eyes bright and restless, hungry for glory. They spoke in quick bursts of laughter, their hands mimicking flight paths in the air, their words filled with dreams of victory. Bay listened more than he spoke. When he did, his voice was low, unhurried, like the hum of an old engine that never failed. "Up there," he would say, pointing toward the sky, "it's not about who's faster. It's about who can wait, who can listen." They would nod, not yet understanding, but when the engines roared and the clouds swallowed them whole, Those words came back like a compass, quiet, invisible, but always pointing home. Bay spent his days training new recruits, teaching them not just how to fly, but how to feel the sky. He taught them to read the wind, to trust their instincts, to respect the silence between explosions. Sometimes, when a rookie froze under pressure, Bay would climb into the second cockpit of the trainer jet, and together they would rise above the clouds. There, in that endless blue, he would speak softly through the radio. "Breathe, son. The plane moves as you do. Don't fight it. Flow with it." And slowly, the trembling hands would steady. The young pilot would feel what Bay had always felt, that flying was not a battle, but a conversation. In the evenings, when the base quieted and the last rays of the sun dipped below the mountains, Bay often sat outside with a cup of green tea. The other veterans would gather around, trading stories that blurred the line between memory and myth. Sometimes they laughed about old missions. Other times they fell silent, remembering those who never came back. One of the younger men asked him once, "Captain, do you ever get tired of flying?" Bay looked at the boy and smiled, the kind of smile that carried both sorrow and peace. "Flying?" he said. "No. What I miss is landing. Knowing there's someone waiting for me." It was in those small moments that the young pilots understood. Heroism wasn't in the number of planes you shot down, but in how much of yourself you were willing to give for others. In the years that followed, Bay's legend grew. His students spoke his name with reverence. They said he could hear the wind before it changed, see danger before it appeared. To them, he wasn't just a teacher. He was the sky itself, calm and endless, a living reminder that courage wasn't noise, but silence carried with grace. And though time etched lines into his face, the light in his eyes never dimmed. Sometimes, when he walked past the flight line and saw the jets glinting in the sun, he would rest his hand gently on the metal fuselage. "Take care of them," he would whisper, as if speaking to the planes. Or perhaps to the soul still up there among the clouds. At night, when the stars returned, Bay would lie awake, listening to the distant rumble of thunder. It no longer reminded him of war, but of life. Fierce, fleeting, beautiful. He had once conquered the sky through fire and danger. Now he ruled it through peace and memory. The wings of wisdom had replaced the wings of war. And in the hush before sleep, the veterans would still say, "When Captain Bay spoke, even the sky listened." Time has a way of softening even the fiercest winds. The engines quieted, the skies turned gentler, and Captain Nguyen Van Bay, once the sharp edge of thunder, began to walk slower, speak softer, and smile longer. He no longer wore the flight suit every day. Instead, he wore simple shirts that smelled of sun and old stories. The medals that once gleamed proudly on his chest now rested in a wooden box at home, next to a faded photograph of his squadron. But every time he opened it, the scent of metal and memories still carried the echo of the skies. His home was a small, peaceful place near the Mekong Delta, surrounded by the whisper of water palms and the rhythm of riverboats drifting by. Villagers often came to visit, not because he was a hero, but because he was their hero, one of their own. He would greet them with a warm smile and a humble nod, always saying the same thing: "I just did what any son of Vietnam would do." Children gathered around him, wide-eyed, listening to tales of jets and clouds and battles that sounded like dreams. He would describe how the earth looked from above, how the rivers curled like silver snakes, how the mountains cast long shadows at sunset, how small and fragile everything seemed when seen from the sky. "Up there," he'd whisper, "you learn how precious the ground really is." As the years passed, his hair turned the color of smoke. His voice grew softer, like a breeze at dusk, yet the fire in his heart never went out. Sometimes he would rise before dawn, sit by the edge of his porch, and watch the sky shift from indigo to gold. The sound of birds reminded him of engines. The morning mist reminded him of the clouds he once ruled. He had no regrets, only gratitude. He had lived fiercely, loved deeply, and returned safely. That, he always said, was more than enough. When younger officers or journalists visited him, they would often ask, "What does being a hero mean to you?" He would smile, shake his head gently, and reply, "A hero? No. The real heroes are the ones who didn't come back. I just had the chance to tell their story." It was that humility that made him unforgettable. Even as the world changed, new planes, new wars, new generations, Nguyen Van Bay remained a bridge between the past and the present. He represented the kind of courage that doesn't age, the kind of patriotism that asks for nothing in return. In his final years, his health weakened, but his eyes still sparkled when someone mentioned the sky. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the delta, he looked out over the horizon and said quietly, "I think I'll fly again soon." And when his time finally came, it was gentle, like a landing after a long, graceful flight. The nation mourned, the Air Force saluted, and stories of his bravery spread once more, not through gunfire or victory, but through the soft voices of those he had inspired. That night, as the stars shimmered over Vietnam, many swore they saw a lone light move across the heavens, slow, steady, unwavering, like a jet tracing one last path home. They said it was him, Captain Nguyen Van Bay, returning to the sky that had always been his true home. Now, whenever thunder rolls over the Mekong, or a MiG roars in a museum display, his spirit stirs, reminding everyone that courage can be quiet and freedom always has a heartbeat. He no longer flies among clouds of smoke and fire, but in memories, in peace, and in every young dreamer who looks up and whispers, "I want to touch the sky, just like him." Good night, my friend. If you're still awake, thank you for staying with me until the very end of tonight's story. And if you've drifted off somewhere in the middle, that's perfectly fine too. Because maybe your dreams are still carrying you through the skies we just traveled together. I hope this story touched your heart in a gentle way, not just as a tale of history, but as a quiet reminder of courage, love, and the spirit that lives within every person who calls Vietnam home. Each time we revisit these stories, we breathe life into the past again, giving it warmth, breath, and meaning beneath the calm of the night. If tonight's journey brought you peace or reflection, I'd love to know. Leave me a small comment. Tell me where you're listening from, or whether this story lulled you into sleep. Every word you share helps me feel that somewhere out there, in another corner of the world, someone is still listening and dreaming with me. As you rest now, let the night cradle you gently. Let your thoughts slow, your breathing soften, and your heart find stillness. Tomorrow will come with its own noise and brightness, but for now, we are safe here, in this quiet space between memory and sleep. Thank you for listening. Sleep well, my friend. Until the next story, good night.